Greetings, this is Kevin McPeak continuing the Leadership in Technology series, and I'm here with Dr. Hans C. Mumm. U.S. Army Captain Retired Hans C. Mumm, now Dr. Hans C. Mumm, was a Mustang, serving 8 years in the enlisted ranks and over 8 years as an officer in the United States Army before becoming a wounded warrior and medically discharged in 2010. Leadership is Dr. Mumm's passion and has been the key to his success. He served as the officer in charge of the Iraqi regime playing cards, which was CENTCOM's top 55 most wanted list. This was touted by the Defense Intelligence Agency as one of the most successful information operations (IO) campaigns in the history of the DIA. Dr. Mumm has won numerous awards and accolades for his dedication in supporting Homeland Security and America's strategic global position. In 2005, Dr. Mumm was recognized as one of the 10 outstanding young Americans, and in 2003 he was awarded the National Defense PAC American Patriot Ingenuity Award for service during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Dr. Mumm is an instructor with American Military University and California University of Pennsylvania. Most recently, he has been offered a fellowship with the Cyber Conflict Documentation Project to research autonomous systems in the physical and virtual worlds. Dr. Mumm's book, which I mentioned, is Applying Complexity Leadership Theory to Drone Airspace Integration. Dr. Mumm, tell us a little bit about yourself and your new book. How's the book doing? What is the feedback from your book?
Well, Kevin, first I want to thank you for having me on your program. I really appreciate the opportunity. A little bit about myself is that I was born in Reno, Nevada. My dad was in the Army as well. I ended up following his footsteps going into the Army. Unluckily, I became a wounded warrior in 2009. 2010, I decided to go after my doctorate. Ended up with my doctorate in management with a concentration in Homeland Security. Best thing I could do after getting a doctorate is write a book and try to help out some of the issues that are out there. The book is actually doing very well. It was the #1 new release on Amazon for the last couple of weeks, and so far the feedback is very positive. We have everybody coming on the website, and the really interesting part is that one of the things that they're asking for is when's book 2 coming out. I actually have one comment on there that says that I should write the next book on drones behaving badly. So things are working out really well.
Sort of like Drones Gone Wild.
Exactly.
2015.
Just probably not the X-rated version.
But yeah, let's keep everything here G-rated. So, Dr. Mumm, specifically regarding drones and commercial planes, we've had 3 close calls with drones and commercial planes. What's your thoughts on this, and what kind of regulations should we have in the United States?
Well, part of the issue that you have right now is that there's really not that many drone regulations out there. You have some of the older regulations that were from the remote control days, but the challenge you have is the difference between a remote control aircraft and a drone. And the major difference between them is in a normal radio controlled aircraft, somebody would use just a radio control, and they would actually have to be physically on the radio control the entire time in order to watch the vehicle. Today, these are pretty much self-autonomous vehicles. This drone, this is just one of my drones, but this drone, you actually just simply press a button, it jumps into a hover, and it's basically semi-autonomous or autonomous. That's the big difference between these. Now, why is it becoming an issue with aviation and commercial aviation is because people are not following some of the directions. The thing is one bad apple ruins the bunch, right? And that's really what's going on, is that most people that are flying the drones, most people that are out there wanting to do commercial drone use and private drone use, they're following the rules, they're doing what they should do. It's the bad apples that are hurting us. How do you actually take and regulate that? It's going to be very difficult. This comes down to an issue of the bad apple. You've got to chase after them and then figure out how you deal with them. Well, our challenge right now is that we've had 20-25 years to come up with drone regulations. We haven't done it, so now we're sort of chasing. We're behind the scenes.
I see. Very, very interesting. Dr. Mumm, at a previous conference where you were presenting, I heard you make reference to the whole sphere of drones as being sort of the hidden cyber threat. Could you go into a little more detail specific to what you see as the hidden cyber threat specific
Sure.
to drones?
Sure. The issue that you have with the cyber threat is several. So one of the issues that you have is most drones, such as this one here, it's just a solo drone that I have, they're working off of Wi-Fi. And so you have to look at the idea of, can you break in? Can somebody hack it? This is a smaller, more inexpensive one, although it's very robust for what it is. But when you look at the drones, are you able to, because it's all wireless, are you able to break in? Can you grab a hold of the vehicle? Can you grab a hold of the sensor itself? Can you grab both of them? And then who's actually controlling it? Part of the challenge is that this is just like the old Windows world, right? When Windows first came out, it was a gee whiz. Oh my gosh, we can't believe that we can do this great technology. Nobody really looked at security. Well, it's the same way with drones. Drones were really whiz bang. This is awesome. Can't believe it's out there. I can't believe as a private citizen I can own this thing that can do so much great stuff, right? But at the end of the day, whoever thought of security? So that's the first part where you got to look at it.
Can I ask you a question? It almost seems like a subset of the whole discussion around IoT, the Internet of Things, where a lot of appliances for the home or other types of wearable devices, things for health monitoring, etc. A lot of these types of appliances and devices come with a default username and password. Usually a basic Google search, when you enter the make, model, and nomenclature of any type of IoT device, you can actually get those. And frequently they actually don't require the user to change it at first use. It allows them to continue with that default name. Is that similar with drones, or do they have more security baked in the mix when these things come to market? It's
pretty much the same, but a lot of them have really no security at all, because again, you're using Wi-Fi 802.11, you're using open waves anyway. So, and remember that most of these things are line of sight. You've got to get into KU band and into the satellite and into some really expensive stuff to really get yourself out of line of sight. Even though you can put some Wi-Fi horns on and really get some distance with these things. Mm-hmm. So it really comes down to absolutely the Internet of Things. Security just wasn't something that they really thought of. Because nobody really thought that why would somebody want to steal my drone and do something bad with it? So that's really where some of that came in. Now the second issue that you have is that these are built on open platforms. They're all open architecture platforms. So this unit here, I can actually just go in and create my own apps for if I want, and I can share them on the internet. People do it all the time.
And that's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Blessing and a curse. Yep. The other thing is that these machines, you can hang stuff off of them. The motors are now strong enough. Such as this machine here, this actually has a follow me in it, so I can get in my car with the base station and I can ask it to follow me, and it'll follow me at around 30 miles an hour.
Wow.
That's pretty robust for a machine that I as a civilian can buy. So the thing is that you've got a lot of abilities in here, but one of the things you can put in here is a Wi-Fi sniffer. I fly by a building or I land on a roof and I've got a Wi-Fi sniffer. If I have a Wi-Fi near, you know how it goes.
It's like an aerial war dialing capability.
Absolutely. So in the old days, we used to do war driving. Now you can do the war flying. The other thing is, of course, if you can do war flying and you can find a network, you can look to inject malware into it. You can look to break into it. So drones sort of are a hidden cyber threat. Most people just don't understand it when it comes down to the idea of, I'm a business owner, do I care about this? The answer is yes, you really do.
And the amazing thing for drones in a military sphere, for let's say kinetic engagements, is the same sort of concern in the cyber sphere, which is you could have the 3 Gs, right? Gates, guns, and guards, to protect sort of the external physical perimeter of your facility, and then have your secure IT infrastructure inside. But with drones late at night, they can undetected, even if there are nighttime guards. A small device like this could, I'm assuming, could breach that fence line undetected, land on a roof, and like you said, then start sniffing and then start trying to conduct offensive cyber operations.
Absolutely, and even right now in the news, they have in Idaho, they had a prison who ended up getting drugs delivered to the prisoners via a drone. So they basically had a hook on it, and they flew it over the fence and dropped the drugs, which ended up causing a mini riot, and they had to lock down the prison in order to get the drugs and separate the prisoners again. So the thing is that, again, this can be, this is one of those capabilities that it's a blessing and a curse.
Right. Dr. Mumm, one other thing I want to ask is, how would you say drones are affecting today's business and security climate?
So business climate is a difficult issue because first thing is of course, being in America, we all want to, we own our own businesses, we're, leadership, all of these things. Challenge is that a person can't really open a business in America with drones right now. It's very difficult.
Why is that?
Because the regulations don't really exist. So the challenge is if I open up a business, if I'm an investor and I put in, $1 million, whatever it is, if I put in an investment, I normally understand what rules, regulations, policies, and laws govern my investment or how I can sell my service. Right now with drones, that's not true. So a lot of the drone operators are actually leaving and they're going overseas. The UK has pretty robust laws, rules, regulations, and governance, or they're going down to South America or a few other places. So the challenge,
and then they actually will sell into the U.S. or at least attempt to. But if they're U.S. based, they're worried that they can't really do a proper risk assessment.
Correct.
For their venture capital to say, well, this is the business climate, because they don't know where it's going to be policy wise. 2 year out, 5 year out.
Correct. So the challenge is that you end up with a situation where you don't, if you're a services business and I'm a commercial business, what is the FAA really going to allow me to do? Mm-hmm. I don't really know. Like right now I can put in for a waiver, but that doesn't mean that waiver stays. So if I've got a real estate company who says, I want you to go and photograph 20 houses a month, I have a revenue stream. That revenue stream is based on a waiver that the FAA is offering me as a favor until they figure out what the regulations are. If they change the regulations, my business is done, I've lost all my investment. As an investor, I can't do that.
Right.
I just can't do it.
It's just too risky.
It's too risky, and that's why a lot of folks are moving overseas with it. Which is also hurting us because now the innovation is moving overseas. All the folks who really understand what these things can do. Because remember,
are facilitating expatriate communities.
Absolutely. And the other thing is you have to look and say, this is just one piece. This goes through what we call the robotics revolution. There's two revolutions right now: the robotics revolution and the biomed revolution. They're both occurring at the same time, which is rare in history because normally you only have one revolution at a time: the industrial revolution or IT revolution.
Right.
So right now, this is just part of robotics. So when you look at things like Google has a Google car. Great. What happens if that Google car runs out of gas? Well, now I can send a drone out to resupply. And now basically a robot is resupplying a robot. That's not that far off.
Right. It becomes a loosely coupled system of systems with redundancies built in and failover capabilities. Even in that scenario with the drones doing refueling of a vehicle running out of fuel, I'm even thinking maybe that's the future for all fueling. Simply, you just do your driving, the drones that are constantly in circulation do the resupply, sort of like you have the Easy Pass thing. Well, it would actually bang your credit card for the cost of the refueling. You would never have to stop at the gas pump again.
Correct. So you're going to start to see the autonomous systems actually start to help the autonomous systems.
Right, and I can see also the panoply of cyber threats associated with all those different integrated systems.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Mumm, let me just ask you this. What would you want people to get out of this wonderful book here?
So the reason why I wrote this book really was two frames. One is the leadership issues of it. So right now, most government and most of the way that business is done is all based on linear and authoritarian. Basically, you're going to do something because I told you you're going to do it. Almost all laws and regulations are built off of that. So here's my question to you. Millennials. If you go to a millennial right now and say, you're going to do it because I told you you're going to do it, what's going to happen?
I'm the boss. They're going to get pretty upset. They're going to roll their eyes. They might say yes, sir, but then they won't. They will not have the motivation to do it because they want to have emotional and intellectual buy-in. And actually, to a large degree, I respect the millennial generation for that. They're asking some very good questions about established things and how we conduct business. So
Correct.
They're shaping the tree. And that's,
So what exactly?
That's a blessing and a curse in and of itself too.
Exactly, but the thing is that you have to look at reality. Reality is that if I tell them to do something and I don't offer them some sort of a buy-in, they're not going to do it. They're not going to follow it.
Right.
They're going to revolt against it. So what I did was I looked and I said, okay, what would we do if we looked at nonlinear, non-authoritarian, self-organized entities?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does that mean? Let me give you an example of one. There's a gentleman out there, Patrick Myers. He actually does big data. But what he figured out was drones are nothing more than a truck for sensors. So I want to be able to take I want to take that data, right? So what he did was he started a self-organized entity known as the UAV Aviators. And UAV Aviators are out there. They're very, very successful, and they're all keyed in on humanitarian aid concerning drones. So the interesting part is when Nepal hit, so we had a big humanitarian issue in Nepal. 2 hours before it was even here in the U.S., the news people were reporting it, they already had it out on their system, and they were asking who has assets in country. We've got people trapped in buildings. So here is a self-organized entity. No government told them to do it. Nobody gave them requirements. Nobody said you must do these things. The interesting part about them is if you go on their website, they actually have all of the countries listed and the drone regulations of each country.
Wow.
What they're trying to do is do good things, but they're attempting to do it within the framework of the law. So again, non-linear, non-authoritarian, self-organized entity, but they're not breaking laws. They're helping without.
They're compliant and they're deconflicting
Correct.
the legal policies by having it web-based and interactive for the ad hoc user community that wants to get involved.
Absolutely, and they're self-organized, so you can opt in or sit back. So it's all self-organized. It's not like a government organization that says
Thick with bureaucracy.
Exactly. Right. You must sign up here. You must do these things. You must do it our way.
Wait in queue for permission. And
exactly. So the interesting part with them is that they have rules, regulations, everything else, policies within their system that they all agree on in order to be part of their network. Here's a perfect self-organized entity that, again, is doing great things with UAVs out there. So what I did was I tried to build basically the next generation of leadership, right?
Okay.
You're not going to stay in an issue.
Static hierarchical structures.
It's just not going to work. It's a changing world. We need to change with it. And if change is the only thing guaranteed to us, why not align with it and move with it?
Run with it, right.
So what I did was I basically took that leadership policy and theory idea and I put it against a problem set of the drone airspace integration.
Dr. Mumm, this is so fascinating. Can you tell our audience for this recording where they can find more information about your book?
Absolutely. You can find it out there at hansmumm.com. Pretty easy to find. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Mumm, I want to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
I just
Kevin.
want to say mission first, people always. Thank you.